All right, here we have our second video on factoring trinomials. Remember the trinomials we're factoring are ax squared plus bx plus c. This is a quadratic. And we're working on factoring when the a value is equal to 1. So our first example, I guess it's our third example, but first example in this video, we have x squared minus a 5x plus 6. So we focus on the c value, the last number, and we say we want factors of 6 that add up to a negative 5. So your factors are 1 and 6 or 2 and 3. Now what I noticed though is 1 plus 6 is 7, 2 plus 3 is 5, but we need to add up to a negative 5. So your options, if your two numbers are multiplying to a positive answer, 1 times 6 is 6, 2 times 3 is 6, there are other numbers that will multiply to a positive answer. How about a negative 1 and a negative 6? Isn't negative 1 times negative 6 also equal to positive 6? And keeping that in mind, we can also say negative 2 and negative 3. So when positives and negatives are thrown in there, it opens up the door to more possible answers. But again, we're only looking for one possible answer. And hopefully you guys have already found, oh yeah, well, negative 2 plus negative 3 is equal to negative 5. It has to be that. And it multiplies to the positive 6, so it works out. So in one parenthesis, we're going to say x minus 2. In the other parenthesis, we're going to say x minus 3. And we're set. What I do here when I list all of the factors, this isn't required of you. It's what I'm doing as I'm explaining the problem. But what I find students do is they try to think of the factors in their head, and if they get stuck and they can't figure it out, as soon as they list out the factors, and you get all the factors written out, then it becomes obvious which one it is. So keep that in mind that, you know, there is a benefit to doing this if you get stuck on something, or if you just like to see all the factors anyway. All right, example 4. Well, does example 4 look a little bit different to you? I hope so. It's all out of order. We want this proper order, this ax squared plus the bx plus the c. So we want that x squared term to be first. The x squared term is negative, so we're going to keep the negative with it. So negative x squared. And then we have our 5x, that goes next. And then that 24 is positive on the end. So what seems different about this one? Do you see how we have a negative x squared? So we don't want that. The easiest thing to do is to factor a negative 1 out of every single term. Basically, all that it does is it goes in and it changes all your signs. But if we have a positive x squared, then we can follow this same way of factoring we've been doing. So we prefer that. It helps us out. So let's factor the negative 1 out. Now we're going to focus on just what we have inside the parentheses. So you go to your c value of negative 24, and we want factors of negative 24 that add up to a negative 5. So I'm just going to list the factors. 24 has kind of a lot, I think. 1 and 24, 2 goes in 12 times, 3 goes in 8 times, 4 goes in 6 times, 5 does not go in, 6 goes in, but I already have 6 listed, so we're done. We've got all of them. All right, now, because they're multiplying to a negative 24, that means one of the numbers in each factor pair has to be negative. Here's an easy way to figure out which number is negative. You look at what it has to add up to. If it has to add up to a negative 5, that means that the bigger number has to be negative. So I'm just going to go in, I'm going to make all these bigger numbers negative. All right, now I'm looking for the factor pair that adds up to a negative 5. Hopefully you guys are finding it. It's this positive 3 and negative 8. So we have x plus 3 and x minus 8. And then what do you think we do with that negative 1 that we factored out in the beginning? That comes down in your final answer. We can't forget about that. It's very important. It is one of our factors because we factored it out first, so it is part of our factored answer.